Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, the 12th of February, and we have another special edition of Crypto Divas. We're here with David Atkinson, and of course, Gillian Gotzel here, like almost every week. So we're just going to ask David some questions about the cool things that he's doing right now, and yeah, that's how it is. So, David, do you want to tell us what your story is? So I see that you've been doing a lot of different projects. So how did it all start, and how did you get into blockchain? What happened?
Perfect. Yeah. So a few years back, I was the chief operating officer at a company called MindGym, which is a fast-growing behavioral change consultancy. And about halfway through my time there, I got really stuck with not knowing how to run a business. And I did a bunch of research and I couldn't find anything that really spoke to me. And eventually I just thought, maybe I'm going about this the wrong way. And I started looking up systems theory. And I found a form of systems theory, a little bit obscure, called viable systems model. I was like, well, there's some nice diagrams and I don't have a clue what this is about, but some guy ran the Chilean economy off it in the 70s. So must be a pretty interesting thing. Let me learn more. And someone had written an introduction to the viable systems model. So I sent this person an email. It turns out it was the only email this guy ever received from his website. But he came to my house. He was based in the UK, came to my house and started teaching me about the viable systems model. It completely changed my outlook on how companies work, really how the world works, and how I was doing the job I had at the time. A couple of years later, he called me and said, "Oh, David, I've seen the future of the internet. We have to get involved." And so I listened, and he had heard about Holochain, and he was wild on Ethereum at the time. I think Ethereum's price was about $1. So he was wild on Ethereum. So he was trying to get me involved in Ethereum, and then he said, "But forget about Ethereum because Holochain is the next thing." And so we met the founders of Holochain, which is Eric Harris Braun and Arthur Brock, before they'd started thinking about fundraising, etc. And yeah, took it from there. So that was early 2017.
Wow, so you started off with Holochain. You didn't go through, most people go through Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever. So you went straight to Holochain.
I did. A friend I went to high school with had told me about Bitcoin in 2012, and price was about $100 at that time. And I looked at it and I tried to buy Bitcoin because that's the way I do things, is experience them. That's how I learn. So I tried to buy Bitcoin. I spent about a week. I couldn't work out how to do it, and I just left it. Yeah, so I went exactly straight to Holochain.
That's pretty cool. So I've done a bit of research, but to those who have no idea what Holochain is, so tell us a bit more about so what's different with Holochain compared to other blockchains, and what is it? What can you do with Holochain?
Sure. Okay. Well, partly the question is what isn't different, but it is a chain. There is a chain. It's just that we each in a Holochain, every agent on the network has their own chain, rather than you're agreeing on the order and integrity of a shared chain. That's the first starting point. But Holochain comes out of a long-standing belief that technology should mirror human, social, and natural systems. And so when we're looking at the way natural systems grow and evolve, we think, well, that every part of the component of the system is effectively their own agent, and they have a way of interacting with other participants, actors in the system. And they have their own evolutionary cycle. So Holochain is a step to building effectively like multi-agent systems where there's no central ownership, just like there's no central ownership in nature. It's all fully distributed, and each part of the system is free to interact with other parts however they see fit, according to the rules that are created by that particular ecosystem. So in a way, you could call it technology patterns because it's an application framework rather than a protocol, but technology patterns that enable new forms of social patterns. Right? So the idea of how humans interact, communicate, and collaborate, coordinate, is at the heart of Holochain design. So, yeah, true peer-to-peer, open source distributed application framework.
Are there many use cases currently employed or in development on Holochain?
Yeah, there's about somewhere between 50 and 100 apps being
Wow.
actively built. Yeah, and it's a little.
Describe maybe one of the more popular ones.
Well, so actually, the open source technology isn't yet in. We had a sort of a alpha release that we built before the ICO, and we've been building an evolution of that since the ICO. But we actually didn't raise money for Holochain because it's just open source software. We raised money for Holo, and Holo is a distributed hosting application that is built on top of Holochain. And what it's designed to do is say, most people who are going to use just like DLT or blockchain or whatever, they don't really need to know if something's distributed or not. They just want to use an application like a website or an iOS app, right? And so Holo, but if you have distributed technology and you don't have distributed hosting, it kind of defeats the purpose. In some ways it's technically difficult. So Holo is distributed hosting. It means that I can go to an application, type in a URL on my browser, and the application can be run on Holochain and hosted by a Holo hosting box, or effectively a node, that can serve that application to me on a web browser. So I never even need to know that I'm interacting with distributed technology. So Holo is the first sort of major app that we are building on top of Holochain. So if you think about a development effort, it's build Holochain open source as well as build Holo. Right? And so this closed alpha is coming pretty soon, and then a series of alpha stages through Holo as we've been communicating out to the community. In terms of community applications, in terms of applications that are sort of bridging between the organization and community, we have things like distributed Twitter already running, distributed chat is working. So they'll be coming through the various alpha releases, and then we also imagine a lot of people will be building their own versions. In terms of what's out there at the moment, quite remarkably, one group has built equivalent of distributed WordPress on top of Holochain, and they have found a way, even though the hosting application didn't exist, they have found a way to serve that through a website. So that's called hum.earth. And so you can go and browse to Hum, and you've got a live Holochain application running, and you don't have to be at a Holochain node to access it. So pretty amazing stuff. And then, really Holochain's kind of perfect for, and lots of conversations around supply ecosystems, because you can bridge data from different applications to get in Holochain together incredibly well. So it has the flexibility to be able to have cross-organization information without having to create coalitions. Things like smart sensors, things like distributed energy, distributed application processing, space, disaster recovery. There are lots of conversations in those kind of areas which take advantage of the flexibility, scalability, interoperability of Holochain, as well as the fact that it can be asynchronous or synchronous. So you can run you can run Holochain and create transactions that then sync without having to have any internet connection.
Wow.
Yeah, that's. I have a whole lot of personal questions now, but I will probably save
them. Ask them. Go for it.
No, it's just one of my ideas that I'm thinking of. So my mind goes like, is Holochain gonna make sense here? But anyways, so Holochain and Holo are separate, so that kind of is clear now. Now, talking on the hot topic of tokens and ICOs, of course, last year was kind of crazy, and most ICOs that raised money haven't either got anywhere, or there were a lot of scams and so on. We all know the story. But what was interesting to me was your Holo token HOT has increased a lot in value. So compared to most other ICOs, so I wanted to look up what are the others doing, and the others are mainly depreciating. So what did you do from, is it right that your ICO price was 0.0001? when you were selling the tokens.
I'm sure you're right.
Yeah, and then now it's pretty much 10x from that. So what was the key to your success? So as most do their ICO, it's great, the price goes up, everyone's happy, everyone sells, and then, you know, so what did you do differently to get over the 2018 errors? Or what we follow?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, so there are two ways that I'd reflect on what the market and how the market has been valuing the project. But I just start by saying the Holo token is effectively pre-purchased hosting credits. So the utility of the token is that it's redeemable to be able to buy distributed hosting from Holo. If you have an application that you want to host, then Holo Fuel is the only way that you can pay for hosting on the Holo network. And the reason for that is because the microtransactions and the coordination required to configure a hosting network of what at the moment, you know, will be, say, 5,000 hosts initially, that will end up, fingers crossed, being hundreds of thousands of hosts by the end of the year. The coordination and payment of who receives what for what is absolutely impossible outside the crypto network. You just can't get the kind of transaction processing or speeds or validations required from national fiat currencies. So there's a explicit use case for Holo Fuel, and the design is a dynamic supply currency, which is what we think. There haven't been any dynamic supply asset-backed dynamic supply currencies launched with this design. There have been a few stable coins that have dynamic supply. And so we think the economics really work for the kind of utility or medium of exchange. So well thought through economic system is incredibly helpful, and well thought through technology, and something that has been a long time in development and nobody else knows how to do is kind of like probably good fundamentals. But there are two things. The first is, and actually I think when I first met Gillian was during the ICO, and we talked a little bit about an ethical ICO.
Yes, I use that term the whole time. Ethical
Yeah.
ICO,
And I would simplify that, because the ethical ICO label had many factors, but I'd say a simple factor is if the fundamentals are strong and people believe in them, or you can communicate them, then in this market, not having pre-sales and not selling to institutions is a big benefit. So in 2018, as the fundraising approach moved to larger pre-sale rounds and larger institutions, I think projects got the incentives wrong, and I think they forgot that the institutions are incentivized to be able to generate return over a period of time, and that flow seemed to go, you know, institutions would sell to retail would hold the bag, price would dump, and that was just an unpleasant place for everybody. Whereas for Holochain, we believe that the key to our success is to building a community. And so then we're really entering an exchange to the community, which is saying, please believe in us, and we're going to do our absolute best to be able to deliver. And these are the values we stand by, and we stand together to be able to deliver this success. And so by not having the incentives around profit turnaround, nothing wrong with what everyone did, because everyone's trying to raise money in their own way. It was just our way of approaching it. And I think for the year that we had in 2018, it was a more sustainable way of raising, because then we have believers in community amongst the majority, I imagine, of our token holders, and their incentives are to see the project be realized. And then the second is just that was the ICO trend, and the more recent trend of why has the price sustained itself. I think a lot comes down to clear communication and probably very, very strong fundamentals. And I feel like the more we have been transparent with progress, on a micro level, so what's happening each week, as well as a where are things going more broadly. How I feel like that has built a much stronger connection with the community and is really important in people believing it's like kind of like a long-term viable project.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's kind of, I suppose, if I think of, so Bitcoin never went knocking on big funds or crypto funds doors. It's just, someone, we don't know who built it, and then people started believing it, and then other people who weren't interested were like, wow, we can make money with this. Everyone bought everything, and now the prices come down. Like, maybe it's just the crazy people who bought and have now sold again are still in it, but the real community still believes in it. And I know people who have been holding their Bitcoin straight from the beginning, and they're like, I'm not going to sell it.
Yep.
So it's great stuff. Community is really important.
It's interesting because lots of people talk about community, but very few actually do it. A lot of lip service given to community, and it's not. It's airdrops, and it's building a Telegram channel full of bots and strangers. And about 10 active people in there, and the rest are goodness know who, and everybody is anonymous these days anyway. Kind of strange. It's like Aline and I, we did a program recently, and we said, in the future, unlike Andy Warhol, when everyone will get their 5 minutes of fame, whatever. In the future, everyone will get their 5 minutes of anonymity. Turn it around. But anyway, but you have built community, which is cool. My question for you then is, and you probably know the answer to this, and I might even know the answer to this. Who inspires you the most?
I'm definitely the wrong person to ask that question of. It's funny because I think what inspires me is often the
Put your mic up, sorry.
Oh, yep, perfect. What inspires me is so often the unknown. So even when we're just talking about community, it's an obvious word, but it's such a hard thing to get right. It's such a delicate and sensitive balance. And so watching and helping, so in some ways, I guess, facilitate people to believe in something so much that they want to actively spend their lives contributing to it. It's like that magic inspires me. And people often ask, like, what's the app that you want to see on Holochain? And it's the thing that we can't imagine that is the thing that I work towards and inspires me. And so it's not, I've felt jealous of people and their success. I've felt scared and intimidated, overwhelmed, in admiration, but I've never wanted to be someone or looked to achieve what anybody else has achieved. I've never related to people like that, but I have related to the unknown like that, and this inspiration that even when it looks like everything is understood and everything is possible and we know with every corner of the earth, that out of nowhere something new can emerge, a new problem, a new solution, a new type of leadership. That is the thing that absolutely inspires me.
I like that. It's a good answer. Because in honesty, if you ask me the same question, I don't know either. I don't know the answer to my own question.
Well, that was my answer.
Yeah, I'm stealing your answer. Oh,
wonderful.
Do you have any other questions, Nina?
Yeah.
I've got lots of them, but anyone for this video? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I like the point that David was making. Now it is when some people say, like, I want to be like this other person, but why? Because everyone has the potential of being, anything. Why be another person? So yeah, I like that. And also, there is, like, most of what's in the ocean we still don't know. I mean, we've been on this planet for a while. We still don't know what goes on there. So yeah, that is definitely, I reckon we're going to see some very cool stuff very soon. But also now moving away from this really cool future vision of apps and blockchain, you two are both doing a really cool thing called Locke Leaders. So tell us a bit more about that. I've heard the story of why, but let's just let everyone else know. So why do you start it, and what's the vision behind it?
You go, Davis.
Okay, sure. Well, after I met Gillian on Crypto Divas, I think we kept in touch a little bit, and she shared some of her personal experiences through the last 20 years of her life. And I remember thinking, wow, I was really inspired by the way she saw the potential for blockchain, not just as an economic system, but as a social world, to be able to move towards a better future, to be able to create a different life, to be able to create money in a different way, and for reinvention. And then the community that she was building around herself, I found very inspiring. And I thought about it, I thought, wow, she really triggered something in me. Thought, this is a different way of looking at what some people were kind of looking at is just like get rich quick, pump and dump, all these kind of things. Actually, Gillian was looking at it and seeing something deeper. And she's really seeing the potential for new forms of people interacting and new forms of economic system. And I have to meet her. So you'll all know that I don't like traveling too much, and that even comes down to I don't like moving around London too much. But Gillian was going to be in London, so I cycled over to meet her, and we started just talking a little bit about this idea of, could we tell people stories? And Locke Leaders really came from that. It's the idea that we're all here and we've all found the opportunities in blockchain. We're all looking to the future, and there's enormous number of visionaries in this world, even where we are now, and even non-visionaries, scammers, and everybody. It's an amazing mix, and we just wanted to tell people stories and who they are and what attracted them to this world. And Gillian was a wonderful writer, and I've been a huge fan of writing, and I'd reconciled with the fact that I was never going to become a writer. So we thought we'll team up and we'll bring some really beautiful writing into the world, telling deep and human stories about people in blockchain.
Wow. When I said over to you, I didn't expect you to say that. I'm going, ooh. I thought you'd say, we want to do stories and the why and all the rest of it. Wow. Okay, that's shut me up now. Look, all I'm going to add to that is, for me, Locke Leaders is one of the greatest joys of my life, because I love writing. I absolutely adore writing. I love people. I love having time to get inside people's heads and then putting it down on paper. I just love that flow. It's like a river. So, apart from Crypto Divas, of course, this is like the best job ever. And I love it. So I'm like this. I interviewed somebody. I've got some terrestrial radio stations. I interviewed Peter Wager, who is the Humans of Dublin. He copied the Humans of New York. He's a Hungarian living in Dublin the last 4 years. Beautiful person. And he said, I haven't worked today in the last 4 years because I've been doing Humans of Dublin. And I look at him and go, I know what you feel like. It's because when you actually are doing what you love doing, it's just an amazing feeling. So I'm so privileged to be doing this. And people endlessly astound me and provide wonder and joy and exasperation and craziness, all those things too as well. But I like the joyful bit especially. So wow. Great question, Lena. I didn't expect that. I'm like, woo.
Yeah, that's the thing though. I mean, there's many people who do businesses or projects because they want to make money. And of course, we all need money at the end of the day. But the coolest stuff starts from either someone has a problem or someone really, is missing something or love what they do. And that's where you see the coolest stuff emerge. Because I mean, there's many other sort of crypto publications out there. I've pretty much stopped reading them now because I can see that these are all paid posts. And that's, that's not what I want to see. And the storytelling, it's brilliant because everyone wants to know, how someone got there. And most people will never go and ask. So it's nice. It's inspiring to read the stories.
Wow. It's a privilege to tell them, actually. That's how I feel. Like, wow, these are amazing people. And you say, and they can be big or small, small or big, doesn't matter. They can be, influential or just a little bit crazy. Just, doing interesting things. So interesting. Wow. I think
Yeah, so I'm out of questions, Gillian.
Yeah, I'm out of questions too. You out of questions, David?
I feel like it's about time, but it was absolute pleasure
Yeah,
to spend some time with you both.
brilliant, amazing. That was super.
Okay.
So yeah, so everybody like, share, the usual things. We want to, we want to achieve world domination in the blockchain zone. Thank you very much, David, for being our guest and for the lovely, kind words and for being inspiring as always. And Lena, you were a wonderful host. Thank you so much for hosting today.
And thank you both. It was great hearing all these stories, and see you all next week.
Excellent.